Hi, everybody. This is Joe. I'm super excited today. My guest today is Mark Todd, the incredible Mark Todd, the master of Newport Beach real estate. Am I overselling here?
Well, hype is the new soup du jour. So go ahead, hype it up.
I will hype it up with pleasure because Mark is an amazing real estate broker in Newport who's had a lot of success, not only for himself, but helping other people get going, including myself. And we have a long history together. I remember, I'm going to do a little math here. Woo, 15, 20 years ago, maybe, when we had met through sports because we played the same sport. And you had said to me, I want to earn your business. I want to earn your business. And I remember thinking that was so cheesy, but yet I appreciate now in retrospect, you were trying to do things the right way. You're trying to do things professionally. And it's gotten to you to this point of knowing what to say, what not to say, and being respectful. So, here we are now, is it 20 years later? Am I doing my math right?
Easily, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I look
It's
the
actually
same. I don't know about you.
21 years later.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. You look exactly the same.
Exactly. So we were actually talking last week off the microphone, just you and I, about a topic I want to share with everybody. And basically the issue we were talking about is there's this image of two types of real estate agents that we see. Do you remember what they were?
There's the model, actor, wannabe movie star.
Right. The no socks, blazer, that guy.
Yeah. And then there's also the classified, the old Betty smoking realtor. Right?
Okay. I didn't think of that one. There's another one. Okay. There's three types.
And gosh,
the hardcore salesperson that's in your face.
Hardcore salesperson, yes.
The one that everything, that they're not trying to sell you a house, they're trying to sell you a conference on how to sell houses or something else, and it's just go, go, go all the time, door knock, door knock. And those two, I didn't think of the senior citizen agent, who by the way is great, who's basically talking about my mom, who is the senior citizen real estate agent. But the actor one, we talked about because of Instagram, everybody seems to be confused that their goal is to be famous when selling real estate, when really it's the property that's supposed to be famous, not you. And the other one is a turnoff to a lot of people because not everybody is that hardcore, in your face, die hard, door knock, cold call type person. And we were talking how you don't have to be those two type of people. So I'm going to give you the floor for a little bit. So
well, let's touch upon those. And then there's also one other agent that's a new agent too, which is a new type of agent, which is the technology agent, right?
That'd be me.
Yeah. Well, technology is important, and understanding technology and how leveraging is important, but understanding how that works and to integrate that into a conversation and a part of a negotiation for somebody is a whole nother level of speaking. So we'll talk about all those kind of things real quick. The old Betty realtor. Let's talk that real quick. And the only reason we had mentioned that because no matter how long you've been doing real estate, somebody's always going to try to one up you. Say, I've been doing this since 1920, whatever. But if every deal is different, then you've never seen a deal like this. So every deal is different to a degree, even though there are many similarities in every deal. Every deal is different because the players are different in every single deal. I've had one client who I was just thinking about it yesterday. I've done 9 deals with this one family. And every single transaction we did was a little bit different than a previous deal, not because they've changed, they've remained exactly true to who they are, but because the variable of the other buyer or seller on the other side, so it makes every single deal different, even when you have a long history of a client that keeps using them. Then the other agent is the model actor kind of. Everybody thinks they're supposed to be famous and an influencer. It's kind of nauseating to some degree. I mean, but and
you're in Newport, by the way. You're in Southern California, the heart of it. So it must be 100 times where you are.
It is. And it's kind of funny because I see everybody running around the same outfits and everything. And, well, I appreciate the old saying, fake it till you make it. Just like the book, the best sales book that apparently is forever real estate, other than PrepAgent, of course, is Winning Through Intimidation. It's a little book that's probably about a finger thick, and it's about this high and about this wide. And all it is about this. And funny thing about this, when I took persuasion in college, this was our only book we had in the class. And I just couldn't stand the book because I thought it lacked authenticity. But what it did have, is the showmanship of fake it till you make it. So essentially, this guy was going into these big commercial deals where he would rent a Lear jet at an airport. He'd drive all night across whatever state he had to get to that airport, and then rent the jet where he was coming off the jet just as the people were coming up who he was dealing business with. So they thought that this guy was flying around on his own Lear jet. Just like you'll see today in today's social influencers, people posing out front of a Maserati, a Rolls Royce, or in front of the fancy to be seen at restaurants and things like that, and always doing the blue steel, kind of thing, And it's actually funny. My headshot that I ended up choosing was a joke. I was mocking that, and I actually used it for some of my headshots where I was just absolutely doing it as a parody, and it actually sticking, which is kind of funny. But that's a whole nother topic. But and much HGTV and all of the cable channels that show housing, that's a common thing. That's sticky. Everybody who wants shelter wants to look at houses and how they can improve their shelter and all that kind of stuff. So it does have stickiness. I don't care necessarily for the bragging of commissions and things like that, because frankly, and there's a funny story. There's an agent in town that was looking to buy a Ferrari, and he just sold a multi-million-dollar home for a client and was looking at this Ferrari, and the person whose home he sold was also in the car dealership. I go, I guess my commission is going to pay for this car. And he didn't remember who the person was of the seller. He never got the seller. So the kind of bizarre story. And I heard that third party, so I can't guarantee the validity.
The point is still the same, that the lacks the connection and personability, which goes back to this point of the problem with being that wannabe movie star. And our point today is you don't have to be that person. And that's an image that presented, that you don't have to be that person. You don't have to be the hardcore salesperson. And to your other point, the third person you brought in, you don't have to be selling for 25 years to be successful now. And so the thing we did want to talk about is, what do you have to have? Because you could be your own person, you could be you, but there's certain things that are just unshakable, right? That just have to be there.
Yeah. And I think some of those things that are unshakable, which is first thing, which goes with the word unshakable, to beat unshakability, is consistency. You have to be consistent. You have to show up like clockwork, like you expect the sun to rise every day. You got to show up to work. And I think all the agents that I've known that have been the most successful agents have all patterned their real estate. And that's what you see coaching. Real estate coaches make millions of dollars preaching this. It's all about creating patterns of consistency, of dependability, reliability, showing up all the time, every time, on time. And that's something that we as coaches too also would teach the kids in sports, showing up on time, every time, prepared, ready to go, right? I mean, and in real estate, because we don't make our own hours. My wife notoriously, hey, can you go do this for me? Can you go do that for me? I'm working, like she just thinks like I get to make my own hours. So I'm here at the beck and call to go do whatever.
You get to choose what 20 hours you work in the day.
That's exactly right. But when you're really working when your clients are available, right? And so this is by far the furthest thing from a 9-to-5 job, because your 9-to-5 clients are busy working, right? And they don't want to talk to you while they're making money, and unless they're in real estate and they're making money in real estate, which is a whole other thing. So yeah, consistency, I think, is important. I think authenticity, absolutely, Joe. I mean, funny, I met with an advertiser this morning in a couple of magazines that are local to the area. And I think print, for a large part, has not quite died, but it's faded and it's transitioned. I think the print marketing that you do now has to be hyper local, has to be hyper sticky, and has to have connectivity with the community that you're selling to. Outside of that, anything that's more shotgun approach is a waste of money, right? But technology on the internet is not so much, because while you can do target demographics with technology, even if it's a more of a shotgun approach with your Instagram, social media, and stuff like that, you can still get random contacts from places that you may never have targeted. And I have too. I mean, I've gotten referrals from New Hampshire, Colorado, Montana, all just from being online. And turned out to be great
Yeah.
clients.
So you do need a presence online, but there's two other things that we spoke before that you had mentioned are an absolute must. One is sphere of influence, one way or another, you got experience. And the other is, at the end of the day, you could do whatever you want, but there's going to be paperwork in front of you. And that client's going to be trusting you to be responsible for that. So I guess we'll call that knowledgeable or responsible paperwork, however you want to categorize it. But however you get there, when that deal is done and that paper is signed, you have somebody who put a ton of trust in you. And people always talk about, and this is what brought up the conversation last week. They always talk about gaining a client as like winning a prize. Like you got a client, and they forget somebody put a ton of trust in you and they're scared. And you didn't just win a prize, you won their trust. And that can't be messed with. And that means they trust that you can handle the paperwork and take care of this deal and have the knowledge to do it. And so no matter how you manage to get the business, you can't get away from that ultimate part, and also the sphere of influence. So those are the other two things we mentioned before the call that you just can't kind of maneuver around.
And I want to talk on those too. I just had a manager from Sotheby's call me the other day and ask me, what do I think the most important thing to teach a new agent? And 100% to your point, Joe, is contract. I mean, here's the one thing that many agents who are great salespeople are not really very familiar with, especially the new California contract that just got redone, right? To know that contract is your fiduciary agreement, not only to your client, but to yourself and to your broker. You have to know that contract forward and backwards, and know where the snags are, because there are little things that if you're not paying attention to them and making sure that they're filled out correctly, will come back and haunt you. The worst kind of contract is a contract with ambiguity. Anything unless it's spelled out to time and date to decimal, right? It's a bad contract. It has to have those kind of details. But that's why they say the devil's in the details, right? So I told the broker, I said, the one thing that you must rely on, the teacher agent, is the contract. If they know the contract forwards and backwards, nothing is more embarrassing than an agent going into a transaction and their client knowing the contract better than the agent does.
Well, that's a great point. That's a great point.
I mean, you just really lost that pitch altogether. And talk about building trust, right? That trust is out the window, because if the client knows the contract better than the agent does, then that's a cardinal sin in real estate, I think, you have to know the contract back and forth and know the ancillary contracts that go with it, right? Okay. So there's going to be a tenant in possession, all those kinds of things you got to know and how to play those out. My brother had actually bought a house one time through another broker instead of using me, but quite frankly, I didn't.
Another story of family issues.
Oh no, yeah. And I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time. Go ahead, go with you. And anyway, he bought a house with a tenant in possession, and I said, "Well, you should have brought it to me." I didn't want to help you with the search. I wanted you to go through the process, because dealing with family can be a difficult deal, because again, they think your time is unmanaged, but it is very managed, because when you got multiple clients, you gotta it's herding cats, and getting them all forward. And then the other thing we talked about, sphere of influence. A lot of agents start off with their sphere of influence is cousins, mom and dad, and grandma, some grandma's house or whatever. Those are the first baby steps. But even then, you really have to know the contract. Gosh, can you imagine disappointing the people who count on you the most, who give you this love and trust automatically, right? And then failing them, right? I mean, that's, again, that's something that, is your fiduciary. You have to make sure you understand that contract forwards.
And this goes to, I always tell people, whether they listen or not, I don't know, I hope they do. But I say, when you're preparing for the real estate exam, you should be waking up every morning and learning something for 30 minutes to help study for the real estate exam. Set aside what you want to learn in the night. When you wake up, learn it. I tell them that shouldn't stop once you pass your exam. Still, every morning, there should be something you should learn. And I don't know if they listen or not, but what you're talking about is exactly what they should be learning. If they're like, well, I know the contract, I'm sure there's always stuff that you could kind of update yourself on, educate on, something to increase your knowledge just for 15 minutes every morning. Because what I'm getting at is that consistency. You said consistency means many things, and increasing your knowledge is also a result of consistency as well, right?
100%. Yeah, like the whole thing about prep agent. If you're an agent, you need to prep yourself every single day. I mean, not only just in the contractual stuff, but there are local laws, in every city that you need. If, like, for instance, I'm a Newport Beach agent, but I'm selling a mansion up in Palos Verdes. Well, I had to look into the background of the local statutes in Palos Verdes, like they have a protected view law, and I had to make sure that my clients know that they have to trim down their trees to protect the neighbor's views, because it's the law, right? But in Newport Beach, we don't have protected views. So you can build a house right in front of your neighbor's ocean view. If you want, it's the old adage, if you want oceanfront property, if you want ocean view property, buy oceanfront property, right? But anyway, so the view, knowing each of the neighborhoods that you're working, even in HOAs, working in a housing tract, they can have particular stipulations that you really got to know. So real estate is made to look glamorous, and it can be a glamorous job, and it's a well-paying job for sure if you know what you're doing. But the key is knowing what you're doing. It's just not marketing. It's not fake it till you make it. You got to know the contracts, and then it comes back to sphere of influence. The people that know you and trust you, and they will extend their trust to somebody else and refer you and say, "Hey, I worked with this guy. Go ahead, use him again." You got to really make sure that's treated with sacredness. I mean, family referrals and referrals to new clients is, while it's like getting a prize, sure, it's also a moral obligation to take care of, not only those new clients, but you're also taking care of that referral source.
It's so important you say that, because it annoys me. And I know it happens a lot. I understand it's not people's intention when they talk about getting a client, like winning an award, like it's getting a gold medal, or they celebrate it. Like, yeah, I got a new client. I understand why. I'm not taking away from them. They're trying to get business. They got some business. But I just think about when I have an agent help me, I'm trusting them with where my family's going to live, with the money I've earned over basically a large part of my life. It's a big transaction. So that trust is important, and learning those contracts is important. And I guess the big message today is you don't have to be the model on Instagram, right?
Nope.
Or the hardcore salesperson, or those different things. And we could have another conversation about the pros and cons of those, but you got to know your contracts, and you got to create a sphere of influence one way or another.
Yeah. And again, and then the other fourth thing we were starting to touch upon was technology. And while that's a great thing to have, is to know how to manage, getting eyes on your marketing. That's also something that can be handled by a marketing person, right? I mean, while it's good for agents to have their own technology experience, the technology the agent should be more familiar with is the technology in the house that he's selling or she's selling. That's the technology.
I have a lot of opinions about that. Could we talk again and talk about that?
Always, Joe.
Because I think we're going to agree and disagree and have a wonderful conversation about that one, because obviously I'm sitting here with my mic and my,
Well, and so to your point for what you do, and exactly, as you are definitely somebody we would consider a social influencer, right? And for a realtor to be a social influencer, I think that's great, particularly if you can hyper focus it to the communities that you're serving. Everybody can talk about vague generalities. Oh, inflation is going to do this to the market, and interest rates are going to do that to the market, right? But particularly to your particular market, there are other things that are more integrated in your particular market, like zoning laws, right, that are being passed in a local city hall meeting that you didn't attend, that are probably more critical to understanding your market, your targeted market, than other things.
Sounds good. So on that note, I'm with Mark Todd from Newport Beach. I'm going to put links so you can learn more about him in the show notes below. There's a lot to learn from him, and he's done a lot of great things in an area where it's not easy to sell real estate. So you've accomplished a lot, and congrats to you. And we're going to talk again soon, right?
You got it, Joe. I always look forward to our conversations.